like the media for you folks to see in the community, because of the fact that right now that's not what's killing people. What I'm going to get into is what's capturing headlines now, and it is what's killing people. And we want you to be aware of the dangers of heroin. Most of the people in this room can certainly remember when heroin was a big deal. And like back when I was a kid, you'd think to yourself, my God, who would stick a needle in their arm and shoot that stuff into their arm? And everybody kind of shied away from it. And, you know, some of the kids, they were off smoking marijuana and they were like the bad kids. And we never heard much about heroin. As I became a police officer and ended up working with now Sheriff Howard many years ago in the Drug Task Force, heroin was very prevalent in Broome County, specifically in the Union-Endicott area. And we never understood why it never crossed over into Tioga County, but other drugs took that presence. Now it has crossed over, and it's crossed over ferociously, if you will. We are seeing many more cases of heroin abuse, and the dangers with the heroin abuse are the same dangers that occur with any illicit substance. You're shooting something into your body and you don't know what it is. Heroin, as you well know, is an illegal, highly addictive drug processed from morphine. Everybody is familiar with the fact that morphine addiction has been around since the Civil War. And people have had problems with morphine addiction. It's typically sold as a white or brownish powder. Again, similar as to what I showed you with the methamphetamine, just a finer powder. Heroin is typically used by either snorting or injecting. What we're told through interviews with heroin abusers is that they may snort, but it's more effective to inject it directly. So we're seeing a lot more intravenous heroin abusers than we are seeing persons that are snorting. The short-term effects of heroin are the rush, depressed respiration, clouded mental function, nausea and vomiting, suppression of pain. Just like any opiate. That's what an opiate is designed to do. It's designed to lower your pain. It spontaneously absorbs. And of course, the result can be overdose, and as a result of the overdose, death. We've been out. We've been able to administer CPR. Squads have been able to administer Narcan and bring these people out of their overdose state with heroin. And you would think that they would consider themselves pretty lucky, but they don't. They're out that night buying more heroin. Long-term effects of heroin are addiction, infectious disease, HIV, hepatitis B and C, collapsed veins, bacterial infections, abscesses, an infection of the heart lining and valves, arthritis, and other, I'm not even going to try and say that, you guys can read it. Liver and kidney disease. Yeah, I would think that most all of those, and they're probably lucky if they live long enough to see liver and kidney disease. Is heroin linked to prescription drug abuse? Absolutely it is. It's a harmful health consequence resulting from the abuse of opiate medications that are prescribed for the treatment of pain, such as Oxycontin, Vicodin, Demerol, and it has dramatically increased in the recent years. And again, we talked about this prior. If I'm paying $80 for one pill of Oxycontin or some other opiate-based pill, it's much cheaper for me to go spend $20 and buy a bag of heroin. Research now suggests that the abuse of these medications may actually open the door to heroin use. Yeah, that was kind of a no-brainer. I didn't write that one, by the way. And anyone will tell you that overuse of your prescription drugs is just like overusing heroin. People can actually get what's called dope sick by stopping taking the medication. And if their doctor ends their prescription, now they're addicted, they get dope sick, and they're out on the street and they're looking for heroin.
Yeah, if you could add Percocet to that first bullet, that would be
But
important.
there's a wide variety of opiates. Yeah, we could run 10 slides of opiate-based drugs up there that have a ton of different names. Nearly half of young people who inject heroin, surveyed in the 3 recent studies, reported abusing prescription opiates before starting to use heroin. In other words, they were buying diverted drugs on the street, diverted prescription drugs. Some individuals report switching to heroin because it's cheaper and easier to obtain than the prescription opiates. Ruh-roh, we're stuck. There we go. This is just a graph showing the increase from 2002 of the heroin use on the street. And this is overall, this is not Tioga County. Again, that's what heroin looks like. You're never going to see anything like that, I would not imagine. And if you do, call me, because I'd like to see it in that amount myself. Heroin comes in packaged in a kilo, and it's moved up through the states, divided, and broken down for sale. The only kilo of anything I've ever seen in my career is methamphetamine. Once it hits the streets, you'll see it packaged, and what these are, they're like a wax paper type envelope, and they're about 1 inch wide. They'll have all different types of stampings on them. This one happens to be one of my favorites, the Obama brand. And you'll see them in all different colors. It's not going to be just white wax paper. You'll see them in pink and black and orange and whatever color of the rainbow that they can come up with today. Typically, if you find this in your house, you're going to see the cotton swabs in bags. You're going to find the needles. You're going to find the little bags here, something for their saline solution here. They call that their works, and they carry it with them, and they have it with them. They may have a number of them in different places, and it's not uncommon. Parents are running across this and going, what is this? We have no idea what this is. And it's for the use of heroin in many different locations. Again, this is the packaging material. As you can see, they're very small envelopes. And if you picked one up, they're almost flat. You would think that there's nothing in that envelope, and there is actually heroin in these envelopes. So be careful of what you're touching, because if you pick that stuff up and you touch it with your bare hands, you can absorb heroin just by picking it up with your bare hands.
There you go.
What you see here is how it's packaged for sale. Out on the street, it's very easy and very discreet to pay your money and pick up 2-3 bags of heroin. They'll roll it and wrap it with a rubber band, just like you see here. What you're seeing here is Suboxone. It's just another opiate-based product. Not uncommon to see maybe some prescription drugs, prescription opiates mixed in with heroin. Somebody brought up about spoons being missing. This is very typical to see a spoon. Normally you will see residue in the bottom of it, a white residue. Maybe you'll see some liquid, but I highly doubt it. More than likely you'll see some type of a powder residue left behind. Again, the pupils on this person would be indicative of heroin use. I don't think that it's all that telling just to have you guys look at it, but it's just in there for information purposes. And that pretty much gives you, for parents, if you've had issues with children, family members, with prescription overuse, or if you notice that your prescriptions are missing from your medicine cabinet, you're thinking, I just got this filled and I got 3 left. Start looking around. It's a good indicator that you may have a family member or a child on their way to opiate addiction. Any questions? Yes, sir.
That chart that was in there was like a big peak in the middle of it. What was that from?
I'm going to suppose, based on the timeline, that it was in that portion where people were deciding whether or not they were going to continue on with the prescription abuse or whether they were going to actually switch over to heroin. So you'll get that spike and a drop, and then you see the steady incline of heroin addiction.
You don't talk about labs for that. Where does all that come from?
Most of this comes from South America, Asia, big producers of opiate-based products, illegally. I'm not talking about the drug manufacturers, but again, opiate-based addictions have been around for forever. Yes, sir.
Yeah. What's the typical way heroin gets into Tioga County?
Typically, depending on the demographics of the area and the type of product that you're seeing, we can narrow it down to either coming up from Philadelphia, out of New York City, or out of the Buffalo region.
And is it people from those areas carrying it into Tioga County, or is it county residents going out and picking up the stuff?
There's more money in it for the dealers in the larger cities to bring it to an area where they believe that the police presence isn't going to be as prevalent, so they feel a lot safer coming down here than selling on their street corner in Manhattan. And what happens is they get down here and find out that we're already aware of it and we're going to start plucking you off the street. Once they figure that out, they don't like being here, because then Mr. Martin asks them politely if they'd like to stay with us for the next 7 to 15 years. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
When did the switch take place? When I grew up, it was the guy in the alley doing heroin. Now it seems to be functioning people who pull down with the job and work. That's hard to reconcile.
That's very difficult to reconcile, because the typical heroin user here, and even in most major cities, is 10 bags a day. Now, I realize that I'm not at the top end of the financial scale, but if I had to take $120 a day out of my pocket to feed my addiction, I would wonder, how am I going to pay my mortgage? Where am I going to go to get my kids food? How am I going to put gas in the car? When are you going to work? You can't work.
They don't care.
That's the exact answer. They don't care. And then the children suffer, families suffer because of it. They cannot hold down jobs. They wind up being a burden on society because they have to rely on the social services system to assist them and to assist their children. And eventually, if you don't have a job and you have to feed a $120 a day habit, what are you going to do?
That's prostitute.
You're going to steal. You have to.
Or prostitute.
Well, whichever. But you are going to enter into some other illegal area to further your addiction and keep your addiction.
So are you most apt to arrest somebody who's a user because they have stolen something or assaulted somebody than for actually buying heroin?
It depends on what the focus is. I mean, if we come out to your house and we have a burglary that's taking place at your house, and that's what we're focused on.
I guess my question was, is it easier to arrest somebody than it is to catch them buying? Is it easier to arrest someone for a robbery or an assault?
Without giving up much information about how we do things, I wouldn't say that it's any more difficult to arrest somebody for selling or possessing than it is to arrest somebody for burglary. And on the flip side of that coin, it's no easier either. Yes?
Now you've doing this for 30 years or so, you said?
34.
Okay. In my personal experience, it seems to me that young kids can't get these hard drugs into their system fast enough compared to when I was growing up. I think that has changed. These kids are, they're coming out of high school or even in high school, and they're moving this stuff up their arms. Well, now we were in high school, that just didn't happen. They're just drinking and marijuana and occasional hit of acid. But I think overall, it's a crisis among young people. Why are they, hitting these hard drugs so fast at such a young age? That's the scariest part, in my opinion.
Well, I think the answer to that is going back to the parents who were receiving prescriptions, opiate-based painkillers, and a kid stealing them out of their closet and selling them at school to his buddy for $5 a pop. Pretty soon everybody's addicted. Drug dealers realize this. Now they're selling them on the street for $1 a milligram, and they're making money. Drug dealers live to make money, and we know that. And if we can get into a drug dealer, we are going to target their money. That is their purpose for.
I think one of the other issues with that too is, Pat and I go way back in the 80s when we were working, we wrote, when we worked in Drug Task Force, methamphetamine was a big process. It's not like this, not this Nazi method. It was a huge process. It took 24 hours to make a batch of meth, and you didn't want to interrupt it. If you hit a lab, you were in trouble if they were in the middle of the process. Well, I think the answer to your question is it's easier nowadays to get the drugs. There's so many more drugs out there. All the Oxycontin, the Vicodin. They just came out with another one. I forget the name, especially with 10.
They advertise it on TV.
But 10 times stronger than Oxycontin. The prescription drugs, the opiates, are so much more today than they were when we were growing up. I agree. When I was a kid, it was booze. You had a few beers, you thought you were, when you had people going over your shoulder, you thought the cops were going to come get you. But today, there's so much more out there that it's so much easier to get. And, you know, like meth, for instance. And you make it in your backyard in a few hours, you know, throw a lab together in a Tupperware box, throw it in the trunk of your car, and, you know, go out in state land someplace and camp out and make some meth for the night and go back home. And you couldn't do that, you know, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. You couldn't make meth like that. It was so much harder already.
If you dry up a source that's supplying an area, how long does it take the people addicted to come out of the woodwork looking for something?
20 seconds.
But you can spot those folks coming. I mean, if you, like I say, if you stop the source, how long does it take?
At the beginning this evening, I talked about my deputies that went down to and are working in the village of Wego. And they both came in my office for their mission. And when I was talking to them, they said, well, boss, sheriff, we know you want the big fish, right? You want the big fish. We'll go out and get these guys. We'll flip them and you know, the little fish, and we'll get you the big fish. And they said, no, I don't want the big fish. No, you want the big fish. And these couple of young deputies, they want to get out there and just solve the whole crime problem. I said, listen, you go out and kill all the little fish, the big fish have nothing to eat. They'll all go away. So go out and kill all the little fish. And they sat there for a minute. They said, you know, that kind of makes sense. I said, that's right. I said, you know, the war on drugs will never be won. We've heard that for how many years? The war on drugs will never win. We'll never win the war on drugs. I don't care what you say, who you speak to. We'll never win it. But we'll move it. We'll move it out of Tioga County like these guys did with the meth. Very little meth. It's still here, not saying it's not, but it's not like it was. It would never be like it was. So kill all the little fish. Kill all the little fish. That's the users and the small-time dealers.
And the quicker you get these young kids into his office and into drug court, the better the chances are of turning the corner and recovering. That's not a bad thing. You get you sent to drug court. It's a good thing, because they're better off in drug court than they are in the funeral parlor.
Any other questions for the captain, the district attorney,
I believe
senior
we're all
investigator?
here tonight because we want to be educated about it. My assumption. Is there any plans to bring back maybe a DARE program or anything like that in the county? I guess not just standard.
There's no plans to bring back the DARE program. DARE program has been gone from the sheriff's office since December 31st, 2003, the day before I took office. I talked to my predecessor, Sheriff Besser, and that was the last day of the program. To tell you the truth, we don't have the manpower to do the DARE program. It's a lot of work, takes a lot of hours. I'd rather divert that to, you know, having the deputies out on the street. As far as education, this is the type of thing that, you know, we will do. We'll go around the whole county and speak to any group that wants to listen. Any other questions for anybody?
Prescription drug is a huge problem, and I really think that but the medical field is a huge problem with it. They hand out prescriptions ridiculous.
Well, I have to tend to agree with you.
We went to the emergency room about 3 months ago, and we told them we didn't want a prescription for pain. I'm going to write you one anyhow.
Anyway, they did the same with me.
Well, we didn't take it. I said, no. I said, we do not want it. I mean, somewhere it's got to come back to them. These doctors make a lot more money for each prescription that they write.
I agree. It's and it was touched on before. about shopping. I think the district attorney was talking about it, shopping from one doctor to another. You go to one doctor and say, I've got a bad back and this and that. And he says, well, here's some Vicodin for you. And then you go over to, you find another doctor, maybe, next town over, next county over, and you say, my knee's bad. And they go, yep, it is. Well, here's some Oxycontin for it. Here's a script. Go take these and be good. You end up with 2 or 3 different prescriptions, and you end up being their next heroin addict because sooner or later they catch up to you and they won't give you a script anymore. But I agree with you. I think there are people that absolutely need them. I mean, there's a purpose for them, but I do think it's easier for people to get prescriptions. Very easy to get prescriptions. Yes, sir.
I just want to say I'm really happy that we have people like you guys doing the job you're doing. You have a job I sure don't want. And the way you describe the kind of environment you have to go into to take these people out, I guess all people doing that. And I think we should all thank Bill Strozen from the Sons of American Legion for inviting you guys here tonight to talk to us.
Yep, you sure do. Thank you. Yep, American Legion put this together for us. Yes.
As far as citizens go, yeah, I know we got